already the target bans are coming through. I find the Hecarim a little bit interesting. Let Me sort of hasn't been the massive Hecarim player, and Insec has been the one really playing that one a lot, but just taking it away because it's a powerful pick. And the zero-aimed Thresh ban here coming through from Gamtee.
And finally, you have to think Cassidy going to fall through the picks and bans. That's been one that Lemme's been playing very, very well, so that's probably going to, again, with the massive changes to his Riftwalk distance, probably not going to be a consideration. Look, he's still a mobile assassin to some degree, but it's just higher risk, lower reward, so probably going to fall through.
Yep, Nidalee still going to be getting banned out, though, here on the side of Gamtee. And we'll see whether there are going to be any sort of major changes to the pick ban phase. It was getting to the point where teams really knew what the strong picks were. They could take off the board, you know, the likes of Lissandra, Janna, Kassadin, Gnar. It was sort of like these 6 bans that would happen, and then you'd have the picks come through from there. And we'll see how that's changed up. And it's going to be the Lulu ban away. And you have to think that there's been some Juggermore being played around these scrims.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you point out the Lulu ban. When we're talking about Juggermore, people might think, okay, Kog'Maw's the crown jewel of that comp. Why not just ban Kog'Maw? It's because Lulu's so central to everything that comp does. The whimsy mobility is underrated, especially probably the most core ability to the comp, but of course it could also be the polymorph. We're talking about all the disengage from both the Q and the ultimate, the wild growth. So banning Lulu does a very good job of either pigeonholing Juggermore to being just slightly weaker, you know, maybe you run the Morgana and Nami instead. But, I mean, it's not the same without the Lulu. And the first pick Rek'Sai, that's what comes through here for Gamtee.
Yeah, Huey looking for another pentakill on that champion. It's 7 minutes into the game. We'll see whether he finds it. And, of course, Huey very comfortable on that champion. And Royal Club now to finally answer. We'll see whether Godlike's going to pick up his top laner first and what he's going to decide to pick up. Because sort of what was Ackerman's playstyle / Godlike when he was on LMQ? What do you think he's going to bring to Royal Club?
Well, I always thought of him as the god, and pardon the pun, of Renekton. That was his champion. He was a wonderful Renekton player, definitely a Renekton main. It was Renekton and Nasus, actually. We're talking about Season 3 when he was still on the Starhound Royal Club team. Just a tank player in general. He played a lot of Lulu and other champions in the LCS, but on Starhound Royal Club, he was always the tank to anchor the protect the puppy, you know, the build the puppy strategy. He was always a wonderful tank role player, and he locks in perhaps the most reliable of all tanks. It's Maokai in the top lane.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's proving your point already. Has locked in that Maokai. Not going to be in the jungle, or might actually be support, of course. A few memories of OMG when Low was playing for the team, but it is going to be Insect's Rengar here in the jungle as well. So very comfort picks coming through so far. And Xiaohu looking at Letme's Gnar here, and I would understand that pickup just because Letme has shown so much ability to play that champion beautifully so far.
Worth noting, of course, we've jumped from patch 5.2 to 5.4, so of course the Gnar nerfs have come through.
Yeah, that's
His
true.
Mega Gnar form is just that much shorter. It takes longer. He's in that tired state a little bit more often in terms of 15 seconds before he can build up Rage again. More reliable, easier to time those abilities now. It's kind of a very small buff, but still a consideration, but still very reliable in the top lane. And he's paired with the Xerath. So the Xerath versus Xia matchup probably not going to happen on this patch, but Xerath himself, he saw that very small nerf to the stun duration on his E. The max stun duration comes down, but still the wave clear and long range assassin in some terms with that ultimate. He's still the same.
Yeah, he's still pretty much the same champion, and it doesn't really matter because Xiaohu's just so good at that champion that it doesn't even really matter. And Name immediately goes back to his original playstyle, which is, I'm going to be the late game carry, ladies and gentlemen. Look at my incredible positioning, and I'm going to kill the entire enemy team post 40 minutes.
And Atlas, you have to think, that's what Starhound Royal Club were looking for this whole time. HYY way. They could not play that hyper carry role. They're not one of the top mechanical AD carries in the world. And at least on previous form, of course, we have to mention, this is, you know, jumping into 2015 here for Name. They're going straight for building up. The Jinx is the crown jewel of this comp. It doesn't necessarily look like a build the Jinx up comp. They already have an assassin in the mid lane and Ahri, at least a consistent damage dealer. But he's definitely starting with a champion without an escape, a high risk, high reward AD carry. Starhound Royal Club, confident picking coming through.
Yeah, and Tail making it. Oh, I was going to say, if he was going to go for a Sivir when Corki's available and he's still Tail, that's just crazy. He's still going to be able to pick up that Corki and have a little bit more trading power here in the bottom lane. It's going to be a real test here for Name in his first game out.
Yeah, and he gets the peel with the Nami pickup, not Name. The Nami is
I
the
was
support.
wondering whether Zero is going to do that. The Nami. That is just so rude.
It's actually the Zero Nami.
Zero.
With Name on.
Yeah,
Jinx.
yeah.
Not confusing at all.
Name and Nami and Zero and Nami and Name and Jinx and oh goodness me. It's just difficult, Papa Smithy is what it is. It's just difficult.
So nursery rhyme hour starts very early here on the LPL broadcast, but the resultant comps, It's all about Name on the Star Royal Club team. Of course, going to definitely be a supporting act from Korn. Korn, he's been trying those long-range carries. He's tried the Lux. He's tried the wave clear champions like Orianna and been preyed upon. I was kind of imploring Star Royal Club, start picking for the mid-game. Start taking the game, you know, by the skin of the teeth, by the neck, and try and make things happen in the mid-game. And that's what they're going for this comp with the Jinx late-game insurance. So it's a shift in identity for Star Royal Club. But everyone's going to be on point, as Insect is back on the Rengar. Yeah,
back on the Rengar. Not going to quite have as much early game presence as Huey could potentially have on that Rek'Sai, but of course both champions sort of want to be farming it up pretty heavily in the early game.
Absolutely. I mean, Rengar, we know what type of Rengar this is going to be coming out from Insect. It's going to be the Brutalizers.
How many Brutalizers can I build?
I definitely try to stack as many longswords as possible. That's kind of the Insect flavor of Rengar. He loves the longswords. He loves the damage. He's going to have Maokai as a tanky frontline, so at least he's going to have a dive buddy when he goes in there with the Initiate. But definitely, we've seen it so often from Insect especially. Initiate, try and get some burst down, then run the hell away from the fight.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because both of these teams, massive amount of comfort. But let's get on to the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, and see what happens. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with our first matchup of the day between Gamtee and Starhorn Royal Club. Gamtee starting off on the blue side, and I'm just really excited to see how this Royal Club lineup has changed now that Name has come onto the team. They've been scrimming with Name for the last few weeks here as well, so not going to be all that new to them. And we'll see whether he's locked himself into a position, whether they've worked out their playstyle, and that's a lot of money for Sync Dream early on.
He does actually spot out the invasion. Doesn't know how many members, but it's the 5-member invade coming from Star Royal Club. Already a very aggressive identity. They're going to be defining themselves a lot through this weekend, and especially this series. As you mentioned, they were balancing scrims with Name and then with their substitute AD carries as they needed. So they are, in practice, not going to be necessarily a long ramp-up time for this lineup, and that's great for them because they don't have a long time to get it all together.
Yeah, and already Royal Club looking for that lane swap. Every entrance to the bottom side of that jungle has been warded out. Of course, the bottom lane for Gamtee already in position. So then probably not going to be walking over those wards. And it looks like we are going to be having standard lanes. And is this what Royal Club wanted to find out with this early deep vision? Is whether they could guarantee a 2v2?
I think it's good to get the aggressive invasion. Now, it's two, as you mentioned, farming junglers, so predictability, especially as they move towards level 6, is important. In terms of the Jinx Corki matchup, in the early levels, you know, before you get range on those rockets, Jinx can struggle a little bit, but you know, with her short range especially, she does opt into those Phosphorus Bomb auto attack harassments coming through from Corki. But once she gets the BF Soul, she can get a lot stronger. So, I mean, they would have liked the lane swap, but they'll take the 2v2.
Yeah. We'll see how it does work out for them because, of course, Name on this this Jinx is going to be augmented a lot by Zero's Nami. Nami actually does help these hyper carries perform a little bit better in the early game, what with the Tidecaller's Blessing, the Ebb and Flow Sustain really helping out here as well, as Nami just going to wander out of that Phosphorus Bomb pretty nimbly.
I mean, we talk a lot about Nami. Understandably, of course, he's a star name coming into the Starhorn Royal Club lineup. But the more interesting factor to me is that Zero is now able to kind of return to his identity that was kind of really heralded during Worlds, was how good he was as a disengaged support. But of course, playing with those role players, you know, playing with the substitute AD carries, going for the full disengage support wasn't really working with Star World Cup, so we saw a lot more initiation support coming out from Zero. Now having a star AD carry next to him, able to return to the Nami, able to return to the disengage flavor of support, and potentially this could make Star World Cup, everyone's maybe, at least to me, playing within their role. Everyone understands exactly their limits and what they're going for, and so this is definitely the new beginning for Star World Cup. Okay, it took 8 weeks of the season to reach it, but this is kind of the acid test to find out exactly what Starhorn Royal Cup lineup is going to push towards playoff consideration.
Yeah, the thing that I'm interested in, though, is the fact that Gamtee have looked fantastic over the last few weeks here as well, and it's been a lot off the back of Tail, and especially his Corki here as well. So the first test here for Name, despite the fact that this is against Gamtee, who are theoretically a bottom-tier team, it's not going to be any slouch.
And, you know, it's very difficult to pigeonhole teams. As you mentioned, the momentum has not been with Star Royal Cup. They've struggled. They've been run over in a lot of those games, early surrenders coming through. So again, they kind of have to leave their past behind them and forge a new identity. And as you mentioned, Tail on the Corki. Corki's still very powerful. No nerfs coming through to him, I believe, in the last 2 patches, apart from maybe his Valkyrie being increased mana to that 100 mana. So you have to be a little bit more careful with your mana usage during fights, but otherwise very much the same. And as you mentioned, the rotational power of Gamtee in the early game and really the rotational struggles of Starhorn Royal Club are consistent storylines over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
So if we return to those storylines, you'd have to favor Gamtee in the matchup. It's just so much has changed. It's patch, it's lineup, everything's changed for Starhorn Royal Club. And this is their chance to show it.
Yeah, and yet you have to think, though, that Gamtee, especially with the comp that they've brought, are going to have a lot of power, especially once Tail hits that Trinity Force. Then they're going to have sort of this Nah plus Rite of the Arcane Xiaohu just sitting at the back line doing so much consistent damage. Huey may have found Insec here, but it's just going to be a bit of a ward off as Pink Ward is going to be put down and Vision is going to be eliminated here on the side of Gamtee.
Huey's definitely power level. We see some trading in the bot lane, but Name backs out. Yeah, some power 11 coming from Hughes. Actually over half a level ahead. He's just going to turn his head, come by the lane again.
Yep, seeking some prey here in this bottom side as Zero takes that purple vault to the back of the knee. But he is going to be A-OK. And this is where the sustain really does help Royal Club in this lane because Sync Dream and Tail are going to have a lot more of a difficult time getting that health back.
So Name pushing very aggressive, but Huey is in position. They know the pink ward's down, so you'd have to think Starhorn Royal Club don't want to push up too far.
Oh, the vision but from Tail from that zap being given of Huey. So that entire gank scenario going to be derailed there a little bit for Gamtee, and Huey's going to slink back into his jungle. Royal Club already starting a bit of a zone, though, here in the bottom lane, as you can see.
And it's worth noting, you were bringing up the roaming support of Sync Dream with the 2v2 lanes. Maybe that's an interesting adaptation against Gamtee because it kind of doesn't free up Sync Dream to roam and be level 2, and as you mentioned, be a CC bot across the lanes. When it's the lane swap, you can often, take your support, roam with them, and not lose a lot of lane presence. With Name and, of course, Starhorn Royal Club in general, pushing so aggressively in bottom, Sync Dream's just relegated to sitting in lane.
Yeah, and at the moment, Name actually getting a lot of harassment down at the tail here in this bottom side. Phosphorus Bomb not going to find its mark, and Corky's going to have to go back relatively early here. 6 CS advantage for Name early on, and already showing that he's really helping out, especially here on the bottom side, because the last couple of series that we've seen Starhorn Royal Club in, I mean, First Blood's gone down in the bottom lane at about this time.
And look, pushing aggressively against Corky is really a very important thing for Jinx in this matchup. In the Jinx versus Corky matchup, if you can force the Corky to use Phosphorus Bomb to clear waves, if he's pushed and eating harass under turret, he's with a no sustained support, you have to remember, in Morgana. Morgana doesn't offer a lot of lane presence unless she's able to hit that Dark Binding in trades. So being pushed in so aggressively, Sync Dream just watching Tail eat harassment after harassment, the lane in perfect position for him, as in the top, Meganar is a form.
Yeah, Let Me actually going for the 1v1 here, forcing the flash very early as the wallop comes out, and Godlike completely out of mana here as well. And we were talking about Let Me being a really strong Gnar, and he's already demonstrating it.
See, Huey's considering his options. He was looking for a lane game, but backs away. Understands that Godlike, without mana, is not going to overextend in that top lane.
No, he is going to be heading back, of course. Has that teleport available. We'll see whether he holds onto it, or whether he's going to teleport back to that lane, make sure that he stays relevant as far as that 1v1 is concerned, or whether he really does value the potential dragon fight that is looming for both of these teams.
It's actually just going to grow the CS advantage in the top lane. Worth noting, 17 CS is the advantage for the whole map advantage as well. So it's being so hard forced in. Godlike in his first performance, being bossed around by Let Me, and really needs to get back and get some more sustain. The Catalyst, for example, as soon as possible.
And is that just good play, or is this just something that happens inherently in this matchup between Maokai and Nah?
I mean, we just don't often see the 1v1 matchup before the lane swap happens earlier. So usually when there's a lane swap, you can show up to lane with Catalyst and eat up so much more harass. But you're starting with Doran Ring, and Nah, in a range versus melee matchup, is going to be able to freely order, is going to be able to dictate the pace of the lane. So it is expected. We just often see Maokai in that lane. So whether it's 1v1, whether it's 2v2 as the Maokai with a support, as Name eats a bind in the bottom lane, it's taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, there's the exhaust actually on Name here as well, as Tail's going to Valkyrie forward. There's a flash out of the way of the zap here as well. One more auto attack. Sync Dream gets the kill, and Zero now in a lot of trouble. Tail takes a lot of damage. Evan Flow picks it up for Zero, and he's going to answer back. Both of these supports, though, doing some work. There's the Soul Shackles from Sync Dream, but Insec turns up right in the nick of time.
So they do manage to get the 2-for-1 trade, although importantly, First Blood does go to Gamtee. For Starhorn Royal Club, at least it goes to the support. The gold doesn't go through to Tail, so he's not able to finish towards his phage necessarily. But still, the trade goes to Starhorn Royal Club. Insect in the right place at the right time, had already activated the Thrill of the Hunt. 2-for-1 is the trade.
Yeah, and that also means that first Thrill of the Hunt also managing to be successful. Very similar to the Twisted Fate is this Rengar. You really have to make that first ultimate count. Make sure you get some extra money from that one as that level 6 comes through. Huey going to find a sapling here from Godlike as he comes around, but Korn going very aggressive onto Xiaohu under the tower here as well, but the flash was enough to get Xiaohu to safety. Spirit Rush going to now be on cooldown, but Korn really asserting his dominance now in this lane.
Actually, we did see the Super Mega Death Rocket was shot through the mid lane, just missed. I don't think it had quite the damage to take him down, but with the BF sword from Name, there's a potential it could have. So, crisis averted.
Yeah, dangerous stuff. Of course, the execution damage on that ultimate is nothing to underestimate. Sync Dream and Huey, though, they're hanging around. They know that there's no Spirit Rush here for Korn, but he's playing very far back, and Yahoo just going to be shoving this wave.
Yeah, both summoners, sorry, the defensive summoner available for Ari, so she's able to live quite happily. Inset, as you mentioned, successful first throw of the hunt. If you're going to go for this offensive build, you need to start snowballing. He's been going for it irregardless of how his starts are, but again, looks much better when you've got that kill involvement already.
Oh, yeah. And already has one of those kills on the board as well. And having that kill go to Rengar here as well when it was only 0 in that bottom lane, definitely a good thing. As Twisted Advance here onto Letme. Insect going to come through. Doesn't manage to land the stun bowler as Letme's just going to throw out that boomerang. Unable to pick it up, of course, because he wants to make sure he gets back to his turret. But he's going to be more than fine here in this top side. As
you mentioned, the empowered bowler strike did miss, so that actually let Letme escape basically without being punished at all. Still has flash, only had to use the leap, so unsuccessful game. But Through the Hunt will be available very soon for Insect.
Yeah, Insect just looking to blow some summoners here as well. Ooh, Dark Binding not going to find 0 here as Sync Dream going to wander over a ward. And Gamtee, noticing the fact that the Rengar was in the top side, are going to be starting off this dragon. It's already down to about half health as there's the Tidal Wave. Tail's going to use the Valkyrie to get out of it. Huey locks down the dragon and 0 gets caught by the Binding. There's the Soul Shackles. Huey picks up 0 and he's going to be able to be all over this scoreboard so far. Korn, defensive use of the ultimate. There's the ult onto Name as well. The Wallop's there, just deleted is Name from this map. Beautiful play coming through from this Gnar.
Yeah, the flash Gnar was incredible. Insect finds Xiaohu in the backline.
Yeah, looks for the assassination. Orbit Deception's enough, and Korn picks up the kill, and Royal Club are going to answer back, but it's a 2-for-1, and Dragon going to Gamtee.
Absolutely. It's actually a 2-for-2 overall trade, I believe. No, it's a 2-for-1, as you mentioned, and the Dragon. So a massive lead there for Gamtee. Starhorn fighting on multiple fronts. It meant that Name never found a free place to auto-attack. Doesn't have level 9 yet, so doesn't have the longer range rockets. Actually wasn't able to put out a lot of damage that fight, then was assassinated by the Flash Gnar from Letme. They need to fight more carefully if they're going to choose this no-escape Jinx as their AD carry.
Yeah, very difficult, but it does mean that Tail has now picked up 100% kill participation here as well in this Corki. Hasn't got a kill for himself yet, but with those extra couple of assists, that Trinity Force you have to think is coming a little bit faster than he'd otherwise expect, especially when the early phase of this lane was quite difficult. Name continues to have quite an advantage as far as the CS is concerned. And you have to think as well, I mean, Gamtee, they've got a far more sort of mid-game focused comp in comparison to Royal Club. So are Royal Club not too worried about sort of having these setbacks here in the early game? I mean,
the Starhorn Royal Club lineup in the late game is very interesting to me just because it throws you off a bit when you're talking about damage coming out from Insect. Of course, because he's focusing on potentially the Yomu's Ghostblade after the Warrior enchant. That's kind of been what we've seen consistently from that Rengar. In the late game, they won't necessarily have the unkillable front line of a tank Rengar and a tank Maokai. So whether we'll be able to see Name put out the damage required for his team is going to kind of be a question. Doesn't have a lot of peel apart from that coming through from 0. So in the late game, you have to take the Jinx over the Corki, but not by much. We've seen so many carry Corkis coming out, even in the late game, that you give the edge to Jinx, but anything can change.
Yeah, and Tail also one of the most fantastic Corki players. You put him next to Deft as far as being able to play that Corki is concerned, and very, very comfortable down here, despite the fact that he may not necessarily have a lead in that farm.
Yeah, it's heady company to actually group him with Deft, as you mentioned, but that's just been the quality of his Corki play. We've seen people try the Corki just because in meta. So, for example, we've seen Vasily and even Uzi try out the Corki pick and not get the same purchase out of it. As we see Zhao's using the ultimate, wants to steal it away, not quite able to pick up the blue buff.
Yeah, doesn't quite find Korn here as well, who is going to discover that he was in vision. But Xiaohu probably could have moved a little bit closer to be able to actually get something on there. But without any vision, it was a little bit more difficult, but worth a try.
Yeah, speaking of vision, they actually used the Scrying Orb on the pink water brush. Did not see Rengar. Throw the Hunt not popped yet, but they could still go in.
They certainly could, of course. No vision available here for Gamtee, as you mentioned, but Huey is waiting in the wings. His spidey senses were tingling. Knows that he might be needed for a counter gank down here at some point, as Sync Dream is going to chuck a ward over that brush. They definitely have a lot of vision control, though, around that tri-brush. Name not going to need to even dodge that duck.
Worth knowing that Godlike did not go for the more late-game orientated Rod of Ages, but it's gone for the Righteous Glory. So they're definitely doubling down on having some sort of mid-game power against, as you mentioned, a very strong mid-game comp coming out from Gamtee. You can't pigeonhole Gamtee either in terms of mid-game to late-game. Of course, Xerath's so strong in the late game.
True.
Gnar as well. It's only really the Corki that's kind of tilting them towards a mid-game comp. So just a bit of mid-game power coming through from the Righteous Glory Maokai.
And Ari also definitely helps out Royal Club, you have to think, as well, as far as having a bit of mid-game strength. I
mean, with the change to her ranges on this patch, moving towards the 600, 650 range on all her abilities. Again, we've mentioned before, it makes Abyssal Scepter a wonderful pickup. I know we might see that coming through from Korn this game, but as you mentioned, in the late game, being 600 range and getting into the middle of a fight when we're talking about Corki and Xerath's AoE magic damage coming out is going to be a risk. So Ari, as you mentioned, in skirmishes, in 2v2s, even in early game team fights when she's ahead, wonderfully strong. But in the late game, her range does start to be something that can kind of be used against it.
Yeah, and this is, of course, the very first game that we're seeing from the LPL as far as this 5.4 patch is concerned. Not a whole lot has changed. And do you think that that means that sort of they've got comfortable with this 5.2 patch and still trying to work it out, or is it the fact the fact that they've had time to practice on this patch is easily going to give them enough? It just hasn't changed the meta that much.
I guess it'll be easier to answer that question as the games go on.
True.
Of course, this weekend we have 24 games coming out on patch 5.4, so we'll have a more holistic approach. I know they've been practicing on the later patches recently, so they definitely have some understanding of how this 5.4 works. As in down the bottom lane, we actually Soul Shackles used.
Yeah, there's the flash. Soul Shackles, beautiful tidal wave to stop Huey from being able to engage with that burrow. Gamtee forced to get out here as Lemmy's going to transform in the top lane, but not really going to find too much.
And we see that Name has to go back and finish items as Trinity Force is already completed. First item Trinity Force completed by Tail. With the Berserker's Greaves going to be delayed. Actually goes for the Zeal instead of finishing the Infinity Edge on 5.4 and even 5.2 before. Not quite the same burst of power when you finish the Infinity Edge when they removed the 5% crit chance. So not much of an impetus necessary to rush it down over any other items. Just getting a bit of extra early power with the Zeal.
Yeah, and with so many skill shots thrown out here as well, the Zeal's movement speed is going to be very important as Gamtee might be discovered here on the bottom side. Easy kill for Name, even though Insec is going to be the one to pick it up, and Huey is round here trying to help out Tail with a nice flash over there, but there's the empowered bowler. Huey comes over, and it's going to be Insec picking up another kill. Huey has to think that he's probably going to fall down. The zap to come down, not going to be enough, but I have a feeling that Huey going to be in trouble. There's the Arcane Smash, and Godlike, he's going to pick up that kill as Korn just going to throw his ultimate around in that bottom lane.
It was looking like Godlike didn't have to make the teleport through. It didn't look like they get the exit kills, but now taking the turret and all the bonus kills, you have to wonder why Let Me did not rotate down at all. Had teleport available, even flash the whole time. They're going to lose 2 turrets to the minigun coming through from Name on this Jinx. And that's a massive amount of extra gold and kills coming through as Xiaohu will be able to answer a bit of damage on this mid lane turret. Might be able to take it down. It's very, very low.
Yeah, the top lane outer turret did fall down, though, so it is actually a 2-for-2 trade as far as those turrets are concerned, and Letme's getting a lot of work done here on this top side.
But an inner turret being down is a very considerable advantage coming through Star Royal Cup. They might be able to start extending. I mean, their advantage over Dragon is massive because they have the minions pushing down the bottom lane, but the teleport's going to come through. They're going to contest this Dragon.
Yeah, it looks like they're even just going to take over here as the leash was not broken. Dragon hasn't reset as Sync Dream's taking a lot of damage down here. Xiaohu trying to get some work done but doesn't find it. Insec now with just so much power decided not to go for the extra brutalizer but just does enough damage with his kit as Huey not going to be able to secure the Dragon. He's right in here. Aqua Prison going to land on him as well as Letme just gets destroyed. Mininar just not having it. Nice use of the tunnels. Huey's going to escape, but Royal Club now creating a massive lead for themselves. Tail in so much trouble. Super Mega Death Rocket sails through and Korn will pick up that kill.
You can actually see from the builds, the important thing, look at the Rengar. It's not going to necessarily be the DPS Rengar. He's building towards being a bit more of a tanky frontline for Name, which is smart adaptation. Not something we saw from Insect in any of the first 7 weeks, but you bring in the Hyper Carry and suddenly a bit of tankiness from this Rengar.
Yeah, and is it just the fact that he has a lot more faith that they're going to have enough damage in these late game fights with the likes of Nami, especially when he's playing Jinx?
I mean, you have to think that just because in the past, even when he hasn't snowballed, he's still building that second Brutalizer. He's still working towards the Youmuu's Ghostblade. In this game, he snowballed. He was 3-1 very early in the game, but he's taken that snowball advantage, put it into Magic Resist specifically, and a bit of health from the Kindle Gems. I guess, again, it's trust in your AD carry, and you have to talk about having a star AD carry. It's just going to give you so much more faith as a jungler. You don't feel like you have to put so much on yourself. You know, there's so many times you'll pick the Lee Sin and your AD carry falls behind you. Like, all right, do I go a bit more damage? Do I just become a tanky frontline? When you have an AD carry you trust in, much easier to start building the more selfless route. Just be a frontline tank and just trust that Ahri and Jinx can do the damage in the backline as the Thrill of the Hunt's active.
Yeah, Godlike going to throw down the Righteous Glory here on the top side, but in the meantime, Sync Dream, he's going to die.
Yeah, the Righteous Glory, not that important, though Nami rotates. They want more turrets.
Yeah, Nami just notices that there's no more turrets to take there on the bottom side apart from the inhibitor and just heads around to get the easy one in the top lane, and this is the power of Jinx. That minigun does a whole lot of work to the turrets.
And there's so much wave clear available from Xiaohu on this Xerath, perhaps his most impressive champion so far. He's trying to rotate, but they're caught between a lot of members of Starhorn Royal Club.
So much CC coming through here as well, but Royal Club get locked up by that massive Nah Let Me, still alive here as well as Rite of the Arcane is driving through Godlike. Huey now getting slowed down. There's the max range wallop as well as the boulder comes down, and Let Me just able to use this Mega Gnar so well.
And the crazy thing was that Nami was able to free hit in the backline, just didn't have the damage to take down either Huey or Let Me. Already so much health and a bit of, I mean, the Randuin's completed on Gnar. And the armor already starting to be stacked by Huey. Didn't have the damage take on the front line. And as you mentioned, Starhorn Royal Club's front line exploded to the focus fire coming through from Gamtee.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was beautiful rotation as well coming through from Xiaohu. You have to think that without those Rite of the Arcanes, without the fact that his Arcano Pulse was just right on point there as well, getting the extra damage down, it would have been a little bit more difficult. Gamtee utilizing their mid-game rotations well, and Name sort of just lost faith in his team in the end of that fight and just ran away.
I mean, he just needed to, of course. He doesn't have an escape. He didn't have the damage to burst through a front line, wasn't getting a reset on the Get Excited. He would have died if he stayed too long. Maybe it would have been a one-for-one trade, but not something he was looking for. I mean, this comp really pushes into high gear when the fourth AD item is completed on Name. And that's maybe the one time Insect was like, man, I wish I had an extra Brutalizer. Might have been able to get that reset, but it'll pay off in the long run, Insect. Don't worry, mate.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Does almost have that Spirit Visage completed. Of course, brilliant synergy with Rengar just in general. Loves to have a whole bunch of that cooldown reduction, and of course, having that W heal for a little bit more is probably going to be good.
The raw heal is what's buffed. There's Korn back to wave clear battles. Much easier to rotate and take those outer turrets when you're not against a Xerath. Of course, Xerath, so much wave clear, has the death cap on top of Merlinomicon. Clears waves instantly with one spell, sometimes two, if he's feeling a little bit feisty. And Royal Club, it's smart of them to realize this and just rotate, take every other turret. Don't have the outer turret in bottom lane, in the top lane for Gamtee, but most of the other turrets on the map.
Yeah, and making aggressive moves as well. They don't want to get poked out by these Arcano Pulses coming through from Xiaohu. It's very smart from Royal Club to make sure that they get the waves in the right positions and then move to the place where Xiaohu isn't ready, just to clear out all the waves and poke down that front line, as well as Korn here as well, who's taken a lot of harassment.
There's just so much on Name in the late game. We see the Mikhail's Crucible Rush coming through from Zero.
Yeah.
A considerably expensive item, 2850 gold for his support. So put basically everything in to complete that item. We've already mentioned Locket's the completion on Insect. He's gone, instead of the Spirit Visage you were mentioning, he's gone for the Locket. Again, they've got all the auras, but you really need Name to do the damage here. So again, so much relying upon him on his first game in the LPL. Already struggled positionally a couple of times in bot lane. Okay, Rust still to be removed on this highest stage in China in the domestic league, but he's set up to carry, but he needs to come through and show us that he's still the world-class AD carry that a lot of Chinese analysts peg him as.
Yeah, and they really have to make sure that they rely on Name's smooth positioning here as well, that he's always been fantastic at, because Let Me, so much potential to pick up kills with this Gnar as well, lock down entire teams, and we saw just before, I mean, if he can get a flash Gnar onto you, he's going to take it.
From the items completed, we see a lot of AP finished on Korn. No magic resistant, as we mentioned, down to 600 range on a lot of those abilities. Diving into Zhao, who now has both summoners up, is Xerath, is going to be a risk. There's always the potential to eat a burst of damage and die as Ahri without the Zhonya's, without necessarily the Abyssal Scepter. So, in the end, Nami definitely the focus, and Gamtee just picking up the items across the board. Looks like it's going to be a last whisper second for Tail. He just wants to get through Godlike and Insect in the front line.
Yeah, knows that that's going to be his job. Of course, not a whole lot of armor has been built up yet from the side of Royal Club. They do want to just make sure that they can weather the storm of poke that's going to be coming through from Xiaohu on this Xerath.
And not to mention Tail, of course, is the Corki, does a lot of mixed damage, probably primarily magic in the early stages. So doing double duty. I like the Locket Rush. It's selfless spray from Insect, something we haven't seen, as we mentioned, in the first 7 weeks. It's something different from Starhorn Royal Club across the board.
Yeah, the teleport actually going to come through very early here from Godlike. A little bit of a mistime on all of those skill shots here for Gamtee, but Royal Club going to waste no time starting off this Dragon. Zero getting poked here just a little bit. They want to make sure that they're not wasting any time. Tidal Wave just as a zoning tool, and it is going to be Insect picking up that Dragon. The second one here for Royal Club, as Korn just doing so much work around the backside. Sync Dream forced to use that flash to get out of the way. Let Me now just trying to zone the team. Hasn't used that Gnar just yet, more importantly, of course. Doesn't want to be wasting it on just a single member, but Royal Club, they get the Dragon, and they all survive.
Yeah, unbelievably, no one dies across the board, even with all the damage coming through from Korn in the front line against Sync Dream. They're trying to get this mid turret. Zert's been so heroic in holding it, and look, it's right at Kane's popped.
Yeah, heal actually going to be used from Name just to give him some extra movement speed, but it does secure the tower here for Royal Club.
They have a wonderfully huge minion wave pushing in the top lane, so Let Me has to react to it. I guess Gamtee at the end didn't want to go for a prolonged fight, especially with the sixth man pushing so extensively in top lane. They probably would have lost a lot of the health on their last inner turret, so it makes sense that they back away. But it's a big win to stop that Xerath anchoring himself in the mid, but Godlike's been caught.
Yeah, Tail actually doing a lot of consistent damage here as well. There's the Vengeful Maelstrom just to make sure Godlike is going to be safe. And Huey now using that Tremor Sense just to hunt around, find some people here. Prey Seeker finds Name in the brush. And even though he was stopped, Huey still found it.
So it's been a very strategic early game. Hasn't been a bloodbath. You say 18 kills in 25 minutes, not bad, but by Chinese standards, a slow, quiet game.
Yeah, exactly.
So
basically nothing.
We're able to kind of look at what's the identity being of Starhan Royal Club in the first 25 minutes. They're running 2 alternate members. Godlike pretty much just doing his thing on Maokai. I mean, if it was Cola or Godlike, you probably couldn't tell the difference just looking at the Maokai play. Just very consistent tank players. But Name, the one thing it's caused Starhan Royal Club to do is be very much more on point with their rotations, you'd have to say. Remember, they were out-rotated. I believe they were 3 turrets to 0 down in basically all of their games last weekend. They were consistently getting out-rotated. We're seeing Insect build carry when necessarily his team might have preferred another frontline tank. Everyone's playing to their role. You see the Mikhails, the return to the disengage supports coming through from Zero, much more comfortable on these, even though his Thresh, as we've mentioned multiple times, was outstanding during some of the early weeks of the LPL. And again, they look a lot more balanced across the board. They look like they're much more on point in terms of the strategy. I do like the play coming through, but they just kind of have to put it all together and see a big team fight victory come out if we're really willing to kind of crown this new Starhan Royal Club team playoff ready.
Yeah, well, there's also the fact that Royal Club are very, very used to playing with a hyper carry. Of course, Uzi being on the side really helped them get to that top spot in Worlds last year. And this is sort of back to their comfort zone, you have to think.
And that's the thing, return to disengage support, return to the Rengar, which he was already playing, but, a bit more selfless in the build and looking more to peel and put out more of the bowler strikes, more of the CC. You can tell from the items, they're very much more familiar at playing at this style, but again, they have to execute and pick up the wins. We're only talking about the first 25 minutes of the first game they've fielded this lineup, as Let Me picks up the split push turret.
Yeah, he's going to be able to utilize that teleport advantage to make sure that he can be in a separate lane, and Godlike sort of forced to group here just a little bit. You can see hanging out, just going to clear out this bottom wave as it does crash towards that inner. He's going to be still 1 tower in the lead here for Royal Club, as they did manage to get the inner turret in the bottom side of the map. But Gamtee pretty hot on their heels as far as that's concerned, and the gold, there's nothing in it, about 1,000.
Gamtee, they're not really seeding that many objectives, but the ones that have come down so far haven't necessarily been from a cataclysmic ace or a massive team fight. There's been rotational advantages picked up by Starhan Royal Club. We still have Xiaohu on this massively strong Xerath. It's going to go back, pick up his Void Staff at 27 minutes. In terms of item timings, he's doing very well himself. And Gamtee, they haven't really given away anything irreparable for their comp. It's still very balanced for them. We're still waiting for that first big force. The Dragons, they've been contested, but no massive kill scores coming out of them. At the moment, everyone's just farming up and getting towards the late game.
Yeah, and this has been Royal Club picking up the first, sort of being the first one to reach that 2-dragon mark. Of course, still just 1 sitting on the side of Gamtee. So despite the fact that Gamtee have had this fantastic mid-game comp, hasn't been netting them the dragons that you'd think that they probably were after.
And Starhan Royal Club, they're definitely not forcing these inner turrets just yet. They got the bottom one very, very early. They're trying to clear as much vision as possible around Baron. It's probably going to bite off too much to chew if they want to actually try and force this objective at this point.
Yeah, just making sure that they have complete vision control that Gamtee was in control of a little bit earlier on, but now a couple of pink wards hanging out here, and Starhan Royal Club going to know exactly what's going on in that pit. As Name is going to destroy some tunnels. And Let Me bouncing over this wall. Let Me's been a sort of very solo Gnar this game.
I mean, but he's built for team fights, you have to say. The Phage for a bit of early laning power, into the Randuin's Banshee Veil, so much armor, magic-resistant health. He will be an incredibly strong frontline tank. But with the Last Whisper completed on Name, he needs that first kill just so that he can, although he doesn't have an escape, if you're just getting consistent resets on the Get Excited, it gives you so much mobility in fights that it kind of makes up to some degree for the lack of escape. As Godlike pops his ultimate, they want to engage.
Yeah, Letme does have his Mega Gnar form, but not for too much longer. Insect just gets blown up, though. He is going to survive in the end, as Letme just going to throw the members of Royal Club out of there. Mikhail's going to be used here, as well as Korn. He's right in amongst it. Right of the Arcane here as well. Is it going to find Korn? Yeah, there's the kill for Xiaohu as he locks down the first one of this fight. Sync Dream somehow surviving here, as well as Insect. And Gamtee now looking to continue this fight. Huey finds himself in no man's land, and Name going to easily pick up that kill. Not entirely sure what he was hunting for there, as the rest of his team were just looking for Insect. As the rockets start to land here as well. Dark Binding finds Insect, and the junglers are going to be traded between the AD carries here of both sides, but it is going to be Gamtee in the end with the 2-for-1.
So Southern World Cup really wanted to initiate a fight, but they did not have vision around the Dragon area. So many auto attacks were lost from Name because he didn't have vision to use them. They couldn't take advantage of his 3-item power spike he'd already completed, and it resulted in a very even fight. So much space control done by Letme, because you have to respect Anar, who's so massively strong in the front line. And again, it's a very unorganized fight, fought on multiple different areas on the map. It's not what Name is looking for. He needs tanks fighting in front of him. He needs to get the reset on the Get Excited. If they're fighting all over the map, if they're weaving in and out of vision, as Jinx, without an escape, you just have to be so much more conservative than Tail.
And this is a really, really dangerous move here for Gamtee. They've got a Corki sitting on 2.3 thousand gold here as well. That is a lot of wasted potential stats, but Gamtee, with the fast move, able to pick it up without a contest. That was dangerous, but it paid off.
Yeah, we'll have to call it assertive. You know, there'll be we talk about madness if they were picked off and they lost the fight. But, you know, we're commentators. We're allowed to be a bit, look back on it and say, okay, assertive play, it paid off. It was a risk, absolutely. And Tail, he can go back, spend that 2.3k gold, and they pick up a dragon, as you mentioned, 2-2 now.
Yeah, looking fantastic here. Does have that BF sword now in his back pocket. You have to think going for that Bloodthirster as that third item. Just really power up his spells, make sure that they have this focus on poke, and then able to utilize Huey and Letme in these skirmishes with so much CC to offer from both of those champions in Rek'Sai and the Gnar.
So the big question to me is, we saw Name, he had to use his flash to pick up that kill on Huey. He does not have flash available on a no-escape AD carry. Corki has all summoners available. Star World Cup, to be honest, should probably look to wait for that flash to come back up before they force a fight. Especially on a no-escape AD carry like Jinx, you need the flexibility of having your flash up. But through the hunt's been popped, they're at least considering their options for an engage.
Yeah, Insect looking for something here. Just going to find a minion wave and destroy that one. But of course, still having complete vision control over this Baron area. Scuttle Crab going to fall down here as well, as Name's going to pick up that gold. Letme wants to be that front line, actually walking very aggressively into the Royal Club lineup. Doesn't quite have Mega Gnar available just yet, but he doesn't mind. He's right in amongst this fight and just getting himself killed. Now the re-engage for Royal Club, as that is just destruction. Double kill already for Name. It's Huey just trying to get out. Tail forced to use that flash, but Insect able to leap through these brushes. Shocking Orb, not quite available just yet, but you can see the extra damage to come through. Tail picks up the kill on Insect as he goes far too far forward. And some bloodthirsty plays coming through from both teams.
Yeah, the communication definitely off from Insect. It was a good engage. They pick up the 2 kills. Name able to bust through what was, at the time was a Warmog's Banshee Veil, Randuin's Letme. He was very tanky. Actually flash Randuin's just for a bit of engage. Not quite the Mega Gnar, but similar sort of intentions coming through. But as you mentioned, the over-aggression from Insect actually cost them mid-turret. So strategically, in terms of those objectives, an advantage for Gamtee.
Yeah, and it looks like Tail's going for an Infinity Edge here for his third item. Just wants to maximize that auto attack damage.
I mean, the first auto attack crit potentially with the Trinity Force proc is going to be massive damage, but of course only has 10% crit chance coming through from the Infinity Edge, 20% from the Infinity Edge, 10% from the Trinity Force, 30% crit and a low attack speed. I mean, it's going to be a very burst-orientated build, but again, if you have the gold, there's no problem picking it up.
Now we'll see whether he's going to go for that Phantom Dancer, really augment the crit style build, or whether it is going to be that Bloodthirster for his next item. But of course, Tail, no slouch here on this Corki, dishing out massive damage. And we saw the fact that Insect, I mean, despite his full tank build, he's still melted.
He's absolutely melted. You have to respect this Xerath coming through. Xiaohu's Xerath has so many AP items, actually sitting on 629 AP at 33 minutes.
He's
the one that was just anchored in mid, farming the whole time. Has a massive CS score. So does Korn, though, you have to mention. But with the extra range, that's why Xerath is so much better than Arya in these late-game fights. Doesn't necessarily have initiation coming through, but just so much damage from such long range. He can be so conservative and still put out massive damage.
Yeah, it's the safety, isn't it, in this late game, just making sure that he can get so much extra damage down and has sort of every ability does a whole bunch of damage from Xerath, so the more ability power he has just scales so much harder here as well.
Especially if he has a big front line, because I mean the one disadvantage, you're not Ari, you can't necessarily just walk into a brush, sweep it, and then have that initiation potential with your charm. You're not necessarily looking for assassination with Xerath, you're playing reactively, so you need a strong front line. And Huey and Let Me, they're doing their part. They're both fantastically strong, but they need to be the ones checking these brushes, pushing the wards forward, because they are at risk of potentially losing a Baron or Dragon. There's a lot of Baron damage coming through from Name on this Jinx.
Yeah, and this is what Rek'Sai is so fantastic at here in this late game as well, is making sure that sort of the brush ganks, as they're getting set up, the Tremor Sense just so brilliant at scouting that out.
Yeah, it's excellent to mention. It makes it that much harder to sneak an objective or go for the cheeky turn around Baron. If you just want to sit in Baron and go for the turn, you don't have that flexibility with the Tremor Sense, but they're DPSing down Baron, and it's going down fast.
It's going down so fast. Name with so much damage has that Bilgewater Colors here as well, but right at the Arcane's been popped. So much extra damage on all of these members. It is going to be Insect picking up the Baron, but the members of Royal Club are getting destroyed. Godlike going to fall down as well as Tail picks up that kill. It's a 2-for-0, but the Baron goes to Royal Club.
I mean, if you're going to sit in the Baron, eat the Baron magic resist debuff coming through, and then let Xiaohu 630 AP Xerath ultimate, you're going to have a bad time. 2 people fall down. Name had to flash out very early, wasn't able to do much consistent damage at all, was full health during that trade, and they might lose an inhibitor.
Yeah, because that's their massive frontline tank already dead here, as well as Korn's going to get stunned, and Name takes so much damage. Xiaohu just taking care of all of the poke for Gamtee, and that's an inhibitor down now for that Baron, and you have to say probably not worth it.
Yeah, I don't think it was worth the trade. They were in a position where they had map control. At any point, if they got a pick, Baron was a realistic objective, but just DPSing it down, grouping for all the AoE magic damage coming out of Tail and Xiaohu, let alone some of the incidental magic damage and potentially the Soul Shackles AoE coming through from Sync Dream. They didn't need to force that hard. They did. And at the moment, I mean, losing your inhibitor, they have the Baron buff. They're going to need to use it and get an answering inhibitor, or it's a massive problem. As Insect, he's dead.
Yeah, well, he's been discovered, most definitely. Lemmy continues to slow him down, and Tail picks up the kill with that Sheen proc from the Trinity Force. Royal Club, they are trying to turn this one around. Nice Flame Chompers from Name to stop the re-engage. There's right of the Arcane, though. Name has to be careful, but he is going to be okay. Of course, Get Excited was working, but Lemmy comes in from the backside with a beautiful teleport and is going to be able to utilize that one. And Mega Gnar at exactly the right time. Huey gets caught by the Frost Queen's claim, but that is just going to mean that he turns around and destroys Zero.
Yeah, he was looking like he was going to escape there now. I mean, of course, face-checked, 4,000 health, Mega Gnar let me. Died instantly, and again, the push is going to continue. They've already got this inhibitor. Probably need to start pushing up the other lanes, but with 3 members dead, they're looking to pick up a Nexus turret.
Yeah, there are super creeps hanging out. They are heading towards this lane here as well, as Rek'Sai going to pop that ultimate there, as well as Korn looking for something. Godlike right in amongst this fight now, as well as Lemmy's tanking up the turret. Is about to evolve. There's the Mega Gnar. Wallop not going to find anyone though, and Huey, he is so tanky. Gamtee, they got engaged on, but you don't see very much to back up that claim.
I mean, putting that pressure mid did allow this massive, and I mean monstrous, minion wave in the bottom lane.
Mega Death Rocket just nails Sync Dream. That was incredible.
From downtown does Nami. They back away. They're going to be able to pick up the dragon. This is the 3rd dragon. They started in a 0-2 hole in terms of dragons. Get the next 3, so they're going to have the movement speed. But they're all going to need to run away. But conveniently, they all have dashes.
Yeah, this is the 2nd dragon in a row that Gamtee have picked up for free just from fantastic map movement. Godlike just going to walk past the pit and say, oh, it's gone, guys. Huge minion wave in the top lane here as well for Gamtee. Their wave control is something that's definitely improved over the weeks, and it's no different this game.
Yeah, there was a potential to find 6 group minion waves in the bottom lane, let alone this 4 or 5 minion waves in the top lane, as you mentioned. They do pick up the turret. That's more global gold coming through. They're 1,500 gold in the lead. It's not much to speak of. And Name, he's 4 item and a defensive item, Jinx. Doesn't have flash available. Once that summon is up, the next fight, it's going to be a sight to behold.
Yeah, and if Name can use that Gatling gun, sorry, not the Gatling gun, the mini gun, in these fights here as well with that Blade of the Ruined King. So much damage to these massively health-stacking champions.
And I mean, he's going to probably need the Blade of the Ruined King for a bit of disengage, because with all the armor picked up, the proc itself not going to do too much to Let Me or Huey, but the ability to disengage with the active, it could be the key factor in a fight.
Yeah, and does have that QSS here as well, as that Mikhail's coming through from 0, and you have to think these late game team fights, watch Name and just see whether he can carry this team through, because if he manages to skirt around the outsides of these fights, getting these rockets onto many members of Gamtee, you have to think that Royal Club are going to be a force to be reckoned with, but it's whether they can get the fights that they're looking for. Chompers onto Huey, but of course not taking too much damage. This inner turret is going to fall down as Let Me timing that evolution beautifully. Zero just going to get picked off here. Xiaohu with the beautiful use of the ult. And now it's a 4v5 situation. Insect popped the ultimate, but nothing going to come from it as Korn hanging out in this base gate. Wants to try and find a charm from the offside, but no real options here as there's the stun landing. Insect just gets poked out, and he's going to have to go back to base. Could this mean the inhibitor turret for Gamtee? We'll see.
With the super minions pushing in mid, 4v5, all full health. It's definitely going to be at minimum the inhibitor. 20 seconds for Zero to respawn. They might even lose a Nexus turret if Gamtee wants to get aggressive.
Yeah, and Gamtee have just played this game so strategically well here, and they may not stop this push as Korn takes half of his health in damage. Xiaohu just putting on a clinic as far as how to play this Xerath, staying in that backline, landing all of the poke. It's beautiful to watch.
And let's be fair to Star Royal Club. We were really complimenting their early rotations. They hit 4 turrets. They got an inner turret down the bottom lane. Star Royal Club were looking wonderful until they overforced with that Baron. They were already in a position, as I mentioned, if they got a pick, Baron was a realistic objective, but rushing it down as a 5, grouping up for all the Xerath AoE was a massive mistake. Just a poor play call, you'd have to think, coming through from their shot caller Insect. And they've paid for it. Every single advantage for Gamtee that wasn't answering some of the early pushes for Star and Royal Club was gathered through those picks at the Baron.
And Royal Club now have to take care of multiple lanes of super minions. They are pushing up this mid lane as far as they can, but of course have met Gamtee now, and the inhibitor is going to respawn.
But the only member that they can realistically put to combat this bottom lane super minions is the No Rod of Ages full tank godlike. He's not going to be able to push out these minions particularly fast. And having 4 members against 5, any face checks, any picks coming through from Gamtee, this game potentially could end.
Yeah, and Godlike actually has an Elixir of Iron sitting in his inventory here as well as Zap. Not going to find Tail, neither does that one. But Righteous Glory's been popped here. Godlike looking to make something happen. That's a Super Mega Death Rocket to start off the fight here as well as Lemmy's getting chunked out. Nami in the backline, able to auto-attack, just standing there, throwing rockets. There's the flash into the Nami, but doesn't find Nami. He takes a lot of damage. Sync Dream, he's going to get taken down. The double kill for Nami right of the Arcane. Not going to find him here as well as Xiao, who gets collapsed on. Does, of course, have that Zonya's Hourglass. Going to pop it now. And Huey, he picks up Nami in the backline, and Xiao now continues to get the damage down. Tail, he's still alive somehow in this fight, but there are tanks all around him. Does manage to pick up a kill, but falls down, and Royal Club are coming out ahead in this fight somehow, and that had to come down to Name in the back line.
Just barely they come through the fight. Korn actually was able to heal and come back. He's going to hunt down for Huey, but he needs to get back and stop these super minions pushing. They're onto the Nexus turrets.
Yeah, and there's a massive wave in this top lane as well that wasn't dealt with effectively from Royal Club just because of all of these super creeps. There is another Nexus turret under fire here as well, as finally Royal Club come back and try and get some protection on, but that last fight, if that had gone any other way, if Gamtee had have had a few members left over, that could have been game.
Yeah, Insect actually just walking around, counter-jungling some of the mini-golems. Mate, you need to get back and start clearing these super minions that are rushing into your lane. We see the inhibitor has respawned in mid lane. They're going to need to respond to the super minion push for at least another 30 seconds or so, I think, in the bottom lane. A close fight. It looked like Name was going to be able to use his positioning in fights to ring it out, but was assassinated by the flash Q coming through from Huey. Kept his flash the whole time to just polish off the end of Name. And yeah, it's just so close across the rift, but with all the super minions pushing, one mistake from Star World Cup and the game's over.
Yeah, and that was an example of what happens if Name's just free to auto-attack there in the backline as well. He was just rocketing Let Me right to the face. That super tank did eventually go down, and
But crucially, he was in the rocket form. He wasn't able to switch to minigun, and it took, what, 12, 15 autos on Let Me? The AoE wasn't splashing anywhere. That's not what you want to be doing as Jinx. So it's good space control from Gamtee, and they're forcing this Baron.
Yeah, Tidal Wave actually coming through here as well as Insect looking for an engagement. Doesn't find it there as well as the slow was attempted by Zhao, who just trying to poke off the members of Royal Club. And Righteous Glory doesn't find anything. Thrill of the Hunt doesn't find anything in Royal Club. They're back to clearing waves and trying to deal with this one. Of course, that inhibitor still down. As soon as those super creeps start smashing that one last Nexus turret, you have to think that's when Gamtee decide to do the Baron.
And you heard me admonishing Star Royal Cup for forcing down the Baron. You might think, okay, why is it okay for Gamtee to be forcing this Baron? You can see from the minimap, the super minions still being spawned, still pushing into the base. The more time they keep Star Royal Cup around the Baron, the more pressure they can draw towards the super minions and allow them to keep split pushing. They're going to force the Baron at every opportunity when the super minions are spawning. And Star World Club, they have two poor decisions. It looks like they want to fight.
Yeah, Baron actually down to 2,000 health, but Gamtee start the fight here as well as Godlike right in the mix. It is going to be the Gnar only onto the super tankers. Gnar is getting collapsed on here, but look at him kiting around this fight here as well. Insect right in amongst it, trying to go on tail, just leaping out of these rushes. Let Me gets destroyed. Korn locks down that kill. Name, he's getting excited here. The double kill now, and that is very close to a clean ace for Royal Club, and this might even be the game.
Yeah, there's no minion wave. Insect's very tanky, but it will take a while to burst down these turrets. Nami comes in with the heal. They're going to try and force the end. They have the death timers for sure, but Huey's going to respawn. He's going to be full health. I think it's possible. I think Starhorn Royal Club might have done it, but they do not have any minions to help them whatsoever.
Yeah, the inner turret is going to fall down. They're trying to tank up these Nexus turrets. Huey just unable to get very much damage down here at all as Name actually tanking this one up. The Unburrow to come through onto him, but he's going to be okay. Just turns his attention onto Huey. He's taking so much damage. Godlike falls down, but Huey's finally going to be dead. The ace gets completed, but it looks like only an inhibitor going to fall down.
Yeah, it's just the minimum. They could have rotated and tried to just push these waves out. They're going to be able to do that anyway, so probably not a big risk coming through. The 1-for-1's just fine. Name will have the flash for the next fight. It was a big win for Starhorn Royal Club, but that's what the global pressure does. It minimizes your advantage. No minion wave to push in and finish. In any other situation, it would have been the end of the game for Starhorn Royal Club. 50+ second death timers for everyone across Gamtee. But it's still so even. Still the next fight decides this game.
Yeah, Let Me, though, just turned his Phage into a Trinity Force for his final item here as well. So he's not going to be quite as ignorable in these fights, but he has to stop ulting just Godlike, because if he gets multiple people in that Gnar, that completely changes the outlook here for Gamtee.
But the positioning with Starhorn Royal Club has been much improved in the last few fights. Name has been able to free hit 2 fights in a row.
Yeah.
You're seeing the damage coming through. He's finished his build now. He's picked up the Phantom Dancer for even more critical strike and attack speed. They're rushing down the Baron. They're going to trade this for Dragon.
Yeah, Baron going to fall down here for Royal Club, and Gamtee unable to face check that to get the vision, meaning that they have to take sort of the lesser objective. It does turn them into a 4-dragon team, but that was too easy for Royal Club.
I mean, it's questionable to me because, I mean, Godlike just respawned. There was only 4 members around the Baron. If you're not confident to face check 4 members of Starhorn Royal Club as the 5 members, Huey had the long death timer, but of course has the neural network, is able to teleport to one of his tunnels. I don't know about them. I mean, I would have thought they would have had the timer. It's interesting to me that Starhorn Royal Club get an unanswered Baron just for a 4th dragon. It's an excellent trade for Starhorn Royal Club. And Gamtee, they're just relegated to sitting in the base and hoping for an overextension from Starhorn Royal Club.
Yeah, and as this game reaches that 50-minute mark, every member starting to build up 6 items, even the supports with luxury items like that Banshee's Veil, like that Locket of the Iron Solari here as well, on top of that Mikhail's for Sync Dream. As these items get completed, sort of how the game went earlier on becomes irrelevant.
And you can see that Sync Dream's not looking for the flash engage. No Zhonya's, of course, a late Zhonya's, very popular among the Morganas for initiation. Isn't able to do that. Of course, has Gnar and Rek'Sai in the front line, but you know it's going to be a backline Morgana between the Mikhails and the Shielders. Every Korn's been hit.
Yeah, there's the Dark Binder to come through, forced to use that Zhonya's Hourglass. Oh, shocking orb flashed out of the way of here from Korn as well. As this, those siege minions with the Baron buff are just ridiculous. Look at the bot lane though,
Atlas. Massive minion wave pushing. Starhorn Royal Club, they need to keep the pressure up. Let Me's going to move towards the bot. He has the Trinity Force, but in Mini-Gnar...
3 siege minions.
Yeah, but in Mini-Gnar form, isn't able to actually do a lot of wave play. He needs to transform, but then he won't have the transform available for a fight. Gamtee, they're stuck between 2 things.
Yeah, the ultimate actually going to get popped here from Zhao, who can't find Nami with it. Name, sorry, as Huey, he's going to get twisted advanced on as well. Does just tunnel his way out of it, but the inhibitor now under fire here as well as Letme finds himself in the back line, getting charmed up there as well, just a little bit Orbit Deception. Not going to find too much as Gamtee trying to hold on to this top lane inhibitor. Royal Club do seem to have found themselves some positioning as Zero just going to destroy a tunnel and then they're going to take down this inhibitor. And as soon as Name gets any time with it, it's going to get destroyed. Korn now changes his attention to this bottom side. Doesn't land the charm here as well as Name takes so much damage. Forced to use every summoner and the Mercurials in order to get out over that wall.
Gamtee, they needed to fight. They cannot give away 3 inhibitors. As Huey's got the slow on Korn. Korn's very slippery on this Ahri. They don't lose all 3 inhibitors, but now we've had 2 inhibitors down for both Gamtee and, of course, Royal before. My God, the turret in bottom is so low.
So incredibly low. Of course, does regenerate, but you have to think probably not quick enough for Gamtee's liking. As they just need to be able to start fights here as well. I mean, if you let Name get any auto attacks on any structures at all, even in that rocket form, they're just going to melt.
And that's the difference between these two AD carries. It's very similar team comps, you have to think. Both top laners and junglers are frontline initiators. It's not the DPS Rengar coming out. It is the tanky Rengar coming out from Insect. I mean, the big difference is in mid lane. You've got the artillery coming out of Xiaohu on the Xerath and the more mid-range, short-range Ahri coming out in fights. But the AD carries, the big difference. At 700 range, you're so safe as Name. He's not able to get the massive attack speed coming through from the minigun form, but he is doing AoE damage from the backline, whereas Tail, he's caught between using his spells and trying to get an auto attacks, but he can't get auto attacks down reliably with that much shorter range. Okay, Name isn't able to switch to the forms, like you said, so he's not getting the maximum DPS out, but he's doing a lot more damage than Tail in these fights.
Oh yeah, just able to stay so safe, and just with how Name plays as well, he's just such a well-positioned AD carry, just generally in these team fights.
CS values are massive across the board now.
Oh,
60 CS, 70 CS almost up against Tail. Of course, with such fast instant wave clear to be expected. Godlike's waiting for a teleport. He has the home guards. The home guard teleport initiate is what they're leaving themselves open for. But it means that if there's a very fast engage, if someone's caught, that teleport, it takes time.
Yeah, well, it's coming through right now, actually, onto the minion that's tanking up this turret here as well, and he's popped everything. Look at how huge that tree is there in the front line. Tidal Wave to come through here as well. Letme does have the black shield here, so not going to be taking too much, and somehow, Gamtee, they keep that turret alive at 70 health.
Yeah, 77. It's ticking up slowly, very, very slowly. It needs one auto attack from Name, but Gamtee, credit to them, they're holding on very well. They've pushed out minions as well. They're not actually losing anything at this present point, but Star World Cup, they're not going to stop.
Yeah, Godlike just able to walk up to the turret here as well. Name manages to get that one auto attack on it, and this bottom inhibitor, the last inhibitor to have not falled this game. Letme, of course, sold his Trinity Force for that Guardian Angel. They want that last fight. They want the ability to turn this game around. Of course, with only one Nexus turret, it'll only take one. Sync Dream popped the ultimate there as well as Korn was forced to use his. And Huey now has that black shield here as well. Gamtee, they're looking for something because the poke that came through from Gamtee was fantastic. Chilling Smite is going to get used, but Godlike able to use that flash. So no flash twisted advances for the next 5 minutes. And Thrill of the Hunt's being popped. It is engage and re-engage coming through for both of these sides. Insect just looking for anything in order to give them an opportunity to win something.
Amusingly, the Tremor Sense, of course, spotting out Insect as he comes through,
yeah.
I believe. So wasn't able to get the aggressive pick. That was his second use of the Thrill of the Hunt during one long fight. Of course, popped it at the start of the engage down bottom as they were trying to siege the turret. Then with all the cooldown reduction, you can even see on his champion portrait, cooldown reduction so low as the cooldown, level 18 on the Rengar. The Dragon's going to come down. This will be the 3rd Dragon for Starhorn Royal Club. Keeping track of the Dragons. Gamtee really want this 5th Dragon. Doesn't look like Starhorn Royal Club are going to give it up.
Yeah, Huey is going to be able to get a ward in there. In fact, so many wards over the side for Gamtee. Huey wants to go for the hero steal, and Royal Club, they're not going to start it. They're not going to give it to him.
I mean, the crazy thing is the hero steal might lose Gamtee the game just because 5 versus 4 in the late game.
Oh, he doesn't manage to get it. Huey now finds himself locked down in this pit. Doesn't quite have a tunnel to take out, but Royal Club not going to capitalize on it, and Huey just going to hang out here in the back and take his turret out of there. But no 5th Dragon here for Gamtee. The 3rd picked up for Royal Club. Bit of extra movement speed going to help them out as the Super Minions have now crashed here on the Nexus. Nexus turret under fire. 20 seconds on the Baron here as well, and Gamtee being forced to run around here. sort of the request of Royal Club.
And with the super minions pushing in, there's only so much Gamtee can do. Realistically, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to compete for this Baron with all those items completed. Now the Zephyr completed on Name. He's so overloaded for damage. He is massively strong, even in the rocket form. Okay, he loses a lot of attack speed, but he's still going to be doing plenty of damage.
Yeah, there is a cheeky tunnel here just above the Baron pit. Can be that Void Rush to come through from Huey. He's got it available. They must know that this Baron's being taken down, but way too fast for Royal Club.
Throw the Hunt might be popped just to give them a bit of extra vision, but Gamtee backing away. There's no super creeps pushing in, so given the fact that they've had 2, 3 inhibitors down at different points in this game, Gamtee are actually relatively sound in terms of minion wave pushes. They're still able to opt into a 5v5 fight, and if they win it, 60-second death timers plus, they could still win this game. But Starhorn Royal Club, they've stacked so many buffs. Not quite the 5th Dragon buff, but in terms of item, they're very, very strong. Starhorn Royal Club, they're pushing in.
Yeah, Insect looking to find something here. Black Shield onto Huey just to make sure that he doesn't get CC'd and killed immediately in this fight. The wave clear still very strong for Gamtee with Xiaohu sitting in that back line. The inhibitor not taking anything. Name, so much damage from this Xerath, who has the Leandry's Torment here as well. So many damage items here for Xiaohu.
Might even be worth considering picking up the Bloodthirster just for that extra lifesteal, because you can see every bit of poke is just deleting health bars across the map. Nami's going to get the blue buff potentially. Yes, picks it up for himself. Doesn't have a red buff yet. But Gamtee, again, they hold the pressure. 55 minutes in. This might be our first 60-minute plus game of the LPL, unless I'm missing one of the epics earlier in the season. But it's still so even. 9,000 gold and change, but 55 minutes into the game with the items we're looking at for both teams, doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything at all here as well. Still one item to be completed from Tail. He needs that Mercurial Scimitar, but he's just been spending so much money on elixirs every time he's gone back. They need to have as many stats as they possibly can. 2,000, only needs another 300 gold or something like that, and he's going to be able to complete that item, and that is going to be Tail completed here on this Corki, of course. Name's been switching up items, building whatever the heck he wants. 9, 4, and 10, 450 CS at 55 minutes in this game. And he's just sitting on extra money here as well. 4,000 gold in the lead, but almost has that in his back pocket.
And kind of the issue for Corki is that he needs, obviously, the magic resist and the flexibility of the QSS, but without a Phantom Dancer, he's just not a tank buster. I mean, even as a champion, innately, Corki struggles to kill frontline tanks, but Godlike and Insect are almost unkillable for Tail. And just not the same story for Name. Okay, he's in shorter range often, doesn't have an escape, so he's more inherently risky, but Tail, he's just struggling to kill the frontline, and that's the big difference between these two teams, is that Name can do that. He is picking up, he is on a champion that is a tank buster, and unless Xiaohu gets a miraculous snipe on him in the back line, it's the difference between the AD carries that's really causing Gamtee to have to play so reactively. Unless they get a massive pick, they just struggle in a long, elongated 5v5 fight.
Yeah, Godlike continuing the split push here as well, and you're exactly right. I mean, Mercurial Scimitar has just come through from Tail, but without that crit, of course, he hasn't augmented that crit since you mentioned the 30% from earlier.
And he's just sitting on 30% crit. Phantom Dancer, maybe for the Blade, the Ruin King. You know, it's something different. It would mean no life steals. Again, the Trinity Force, just there's not enough item slots, Atlas. We're late in the game. Maybe he'll go for a merry old swap of a lot of items, but at this point, maybe a Phantom Dancer for the boots. Maybe that's really the only pickup he can look to do. Doesn't have the gold to do it yet. Only sitting on 500 gold. There's no real good choices for Tail if he wants to kill a frontline. He doesn't really have the kit to be able to do that. But Starhorn Royal Club, I mean, they've had a couple of Barons now. Are they waiting for the 5th Dragon? That means we're going to be talking about a 70-minute game. And the death time is, again, getting longer and longer. It's one mistake from any member is going to be massive in this game. It's 4 rockets, kill the red buff.
Yeah, Name's no slouch when it comes to that damage, most definitely. Doesn't have any boots left, just build the Zephyr instead. Has the extra tenacity from that one as well. Does have the elixir here, as Tail went back and just recently purchased his as well. And you have to think a lot of this is going to be on Xiaohu. Now without any boots, he's got a Morellonomicon for that 40% CDR. Of course, paired with the Athene's Unholy Grail here as well. He's going to be very slow, but if he sits in that backline, he's going to be doing so much damage.
And we call Xerath an immovable artillery when he has boots, so a bit facetiously. But right now, literally, he's like, please come to me. Please fight in my locus of control, my 1,000 rage. Much more, of course, for the ultimate. But as you mentioned, he's happy to fight at range. Gamtee, they want to stop the Dragon Snowball coming through. It still will only be the 4th Dragon, so not really a big pickup here for Star Royal Club. Honestly, Gamtee, be nice if they could steal away a 5th Dragon for themselves, but they have to be content to give it up because the 4th Dragon's not going to help Star Royal Club finish this game, but the Initiate might.
Yeah, Thrill of the Hunt has been popped. Tail going to use that Valkyrie straight away as Insect going to get locked down just for a little bit. Let me right in that front line, but Name going to take down Sync Dream for the first kill right at the arcade. Not to find too many targets as Let Me. He has evolved. Royal Club, now they're just waiting as, so much damage to come through onto Insect and Name, but they'll take the pick. And they might be able to move forward to force something in this 4v5. You can see they're still so healthy apart from Insect, but he's not going to worry about it too much. Tail trying to get some poke down here as well.
5v4 for so long. The death timer over 1 minute, 50 seconds now. They'll get at minimum a turret, but you have to think they're still looking for their engage. They still have flash on both their frontline tanks. Star Royal Club, they want to end this game right now.
Yeah, and they're easily able to pick up all of these inhibitors here as well. Gamtee, nothing that they can do about it. Name just getting excited after each one, and you can understand probably as a person, he's getting equally as excited as this Jinx is.
I mean, 3-13, that's the record for Starhorn Royal Club in their last 16 games. They'd love to make it a first win with Name. Start the momentum as Insect, he pops the Thrill of the Hunt again.
Yeah, he's actually going to flash forward here as well. Doesn't find Tail there as a shocking ult to come through. He gets blown up. Korn forced to use that Zonya's Hourglass here as well as he just gets blown up on the backside. Xiaohu with so much damage. Staying safe here as well as Let Me gets his next evolution. Zero now in a lot of trouble. Gets jumped on, but the Guardian Angel means that he can be so aggressive. Huey looking for something, and Gamtee, they're turning this one around. Sync Dream is alive again, and now it's their turn as a 4v5.
Yeah, there's 2 inhibitors down, but not any super minions pushing into the base. Opens up Gamtee to re-engage. Royal Club, I understand what they want to do. Another pick that would have sealed the victory for them, but they have to remember, Name doesn't have any boots. He couldn't react to all the aggressive gap closing coming through from Thrill of the Hunt and the popping of the Ahri ultimate. And Gamtee, they're going to get the 5th Dragon.
5th Dragon, and that's a Guardian Angel on their Na here as well.
I mean, he had it actually during that fight. Wasn't popped, still has it up. Gamtee, this is such a seesaw game. 60 minutes into the game, suddenly they're looking the better of the 2 teams.
Yeah, but without their inhibitors, they are almost forced to make a decision, make a move, and pick up some inhibitors right now. The teleport's coming through here from Let Me. They really want to make this one happen. 15 seconds now on Korn, answering the middle inhibitor. Only 1 Nexus turret. They're going for the win.
Yeah, they have to fight his Star Royal Cup. They cannot buy enough time. Here comes the engage.
Yeah, 5 seconds onto Korn. He's about to come out. Insect just getting blown up. There's a brilliance on his Hourglass, but Sync Dream, he's going to fall down first as Name here from the backside doing so much work. Insect's going to fall down at the same time. Godlike's turn to try and jump in, but here comes Korn for the cleanup here as well. A triple kill for the Arias. Let Me, he's getting focused. Name's going to pick up that one. And this is going to be the ace for Royal Club, and you have to think the game.
And you have to say the MVP of that fight, it's the only man that fell down. It was Insect. He was able to get into the back line, and he was just continually harassing down Xerath. Was able to DPS him down, no peel coming through. Insect keeping that immovable Xerath occupied, won them the fight. Name cleaned it up, and Starhorn Royal Club, it took 62, 63 minutes, but they finally got their first victory and arrested this momentum that's been so many series is in the making.
And this is the beautiful thing here as well. It's the fact that Royal Club, they've never looked that good in a late game, ever, as far as this season is concerned. Having Name on the team now just means that these late game team fights are just so much better for Royal Club, and it's only going to improve. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got another game coming up for you very soon, and after that incredibly long game, let's see whether we can get into this one as quickly as possible. We'll be back just after this short break.